Please, please, I'm not sure I can take it anymore.
You have arterial bleeding. I'll take you inside right away.
Elena, patients have to be registered first.
She broke the rules to help a veteran. Hours later, Marines filled the lobby. When nurse Elena Morris broke hospital protocol to treat a bleeding stranger in the emergency room, she thought she was just doing her job. But when dozens of Marines in dress uniforms filled the hospital lobby 6 hours later, she discovered that the man she'd saved was someone very special. Crest View General Hospital's emergency department hummed with the controlled chaos of a busy Friday night in downtown San Diego. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the waiting room, where families clutched insurance cards and worried expressions, while the triage desk processed a steady stream of patients with varying degrees of urgency. The smell of antiseptic mixed with coffee from the nearby vending machines, creating the distinctive hospital atmosphere that had become Elena's second home over the past 8 years. Outside, the California sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that no one inside had time to appreciate. Elena Morris, 32, moved through the emergency department with the quiet efficiency of someone who had seen every type of medical crisis imaginable. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her scrubs bore the subtle stains that marked her as someone who worked hands-on with patients rather than hiding behind administrative desks. As the senior triage nurse, Elena had earned a reputation for her clinical skills and her unwavering advocacy for patients, even when it put her at odds with hospital administration. Elena had become a nurse because she believed healthcare was a calling, not just a job. She had grown up in a military family. Her father was a Navy corpsman who had served 3 tours in Vietnam, and she understood the sacrifices that service members made for their country. This background had instilled in her a deep respect for veterans and a fierce determination to ensure they received the care they deserved. Recently, however, Elena had found herself increasingly frustrated with Crestview new policies that seemed to prioritize paperwork and profit margins over patient care. The hospital's corporate owners had implemented strict protocols that often delayed treatment, while administrative requirements were satisfied, a trend that went against everything Elena believed about emergency medicine. The hospital's new patient processing protocol required all emergency patients to complete extensive paperwork and insurance verification before receiving any treatment beyond basic vital signs assessment. This policy had already resulted in several near disasters when critically ill patients were forced to wait while clerks verified coverage and processed forms. Elena had received 2 written warnings for protocol violations when she had provided immediate care to patients whose conditions couldn't wait for administrative clearance. One more violation would result in her termination, but she struggled daily with the conflict between following rules and following her conscience as a healthcare provider. Third, journey begins 600 words. Important, opportunity decision, 200 words. The crisis that would test Elena's principles arrived at 11:47 p.m. in the form of a man stumbling through the emergency department doors, his shirt soaked with blood and his face pale with shock. Thomas Beckett, 45, had been involved in a motorcycle accident on Interstate 5, but instead of waiting for an ambulance, he had managed to drive himself to the hospital despite a severe laceration on his left arm that was bleeding profusely. "Help me," Thomas said weakly as he approached the triage desk, leaving a trail of blood drops on the polished floor. Elena's nursing instincts immediately kicked in as she assessed his condition. The laceration appeared to have severed an artery, and his blood pressure was dropping rapidly from blood loss. This was a life-threatening emergency that required immediate intervention, but hospital protocol demanded that she first direct him to the registration desk to complete paperwork and verify insurance coverage. "Sir, I need you to go to registration first," said Janet Walsh, the night shift supervisor, who had appeared at Elena's shoulder. "We can't begin treatment until we have your insurance information and completed intake forms." Elena looked at Thomas's pale face and the growing pool of blood at his feet, then made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Janet, this man is bleeding out," Elena said firmly, moving around the desk to support Thomas as he swayed on his feet. "He needs immediate medical attention, not paperwork." "Elena, you know the protocol," Janet replied, her voice carrying a warning tone. "Registration first, then triage, then treatment. No exceptions." But Elena was already guiding Thomas toward Trauma Bay 3, her years of emergency experience telling her that he had minutes, not hours, before blood loss became irreversible. "Sir, what's your name?" she asked as she helped him onto the examination table. Thomas Beckett," he managed to say through gritted teeth. Elena quickly applied pressure to the wound while calling for Dr. Martinez, the attending physician. "I need a trauma team in Bay 3 stat. We have a severe arterial laceration with significant blood loss." Janet followed them into the trauma bay, her face flushed with anger. "Elena, step away from that patient immediately. You're in direct violation of hospital policy." "Then write me up," Elena replied without taking her hands off Thomas's wound. "But I'm not letting this man bleed to death while we shuffle papers." Dr. Martinez arrived within seconds and immediately took control of the situation, his experienced eyes assessing Thomas's condition while Elena provided a rapid-fire report of her findings. "Arterial laceration, approximately 4 inches long, significant blood loss, BP, dropping pulse thready," she reported with professional precision. "Good catch, Elena," Dr. Martinez said as he examined the wound. "Another few minutes, and we would have lost him." The trauma team worked with practiced efficiency to stabilize Thomas, starting IV fluids to replace blood volume while preparing him for emergency surgery to repair the damaged artery. Elena assisted throughout the procedure, her hand steady, despite knowing that Janet was documenting every action for the inevitable disciplinary hearing. "You saved my life," Thomas whispered to Elena as they prepared to take him to surgery. "I don't know how to thank you. Just focus on getting better," Elena replied, squeezing his uninjured hand gently. "That's all the thanks I need." But as Thomas was wheeled away to the operating room, Elena knew that her decision to prioritize patient care over protocol would have serious consequences. Janet was already on the phone with hospital administration, and Elena could see the security guards positioning themselves near the trauma bay entrance. Within an hour of Thomas's surgery, Elena found herself sitting in the office of Hospital Administrator Robert Chen, facing what she knew would be her termination hearing. Janet Walsh sat beside Chen with a thick folder of documentation, while Elena faced them alone, still wearing scrubs stained with Thomas's blood. "Ms. Morris," Chen began, his voice cold and professional, "this is your third violation of our patient processing protocol. You provided medical treatment to a patient without proper authorization, insurance verification, or completed intake procedures. Elena met his gaze steadily. Mr. Chen, that patient was bleeding to death. He would have died if I had followed your protocol. That's not your decision to make, Chen replied. We have protocols for a reason. They protect the hospital from liability and ensure proper documentation for billing purposes. What about protecting patients? Elena asked. Isn't that supposed to be our primary concern? Janet leaned forward with obvious satisfaction. Ms. Morris, your attitude demonstrates exactly why these protocols are necessary. You consistently put your personal judgment above established procedures. Elena felt her anger rising, but kept her voice controlled. My personal judgment is based on 8 years of emergency nursing experience and a commitment to saving lives. While Elena faced her disciplinary hearing, word of the incident was spreading through the hospital's nursing staff. Many of Elena's colleagues had witnessed similar situations where protocol had delayed critical care, and her willingness to stand up to administration resonated with nurses who felt increasingly constrained by bureaucratic requirements. Sarah Kim, a fellow emergency nurse, began quietly documenting other cases where the patient processing protocol had endangered patients. Her informal survey revealed dozens of incidents where treatment delays had resulted in complications that could have been prevented with immediate intervention. Elena did what any good nurse would do, Sarah told a growing group of supporters in the hospital break room. She put the patient first, and now they're going to fire her for it. The story reached local media when Thomas Beckett's daughter, Marine Captain Jessica Beckett, learned about the circumstances of her father's treatment. Jessica had been deployed overseas when the accident occurred, but when she returned and heard how Elena had risked her job to save her father's life, she felt compelled to act. This nurse is a hero, Jessica told a reporter from the San Diego Tribune. She saved my father's life, and the hospital is punishing her for it. The media attention surrounding Elena's case sparked a broader conversation about healthcare priorities and the conflict between administrative efficiency and patient care. The San Diego Tribune story about Elena's situation was picked up by national news outlets, creating pressure on Crest View General to reconsider their position. Dr. Martinez, who had treated Thomas in the emergency room, provided a statement to hospital administration supporting Elena's actions. Nurse Morris made the correct clinical decision, he wrote. Her intervention was medically appropriate and potentially life-saving. Disciplining her for providing excellent patient care sends the wrong message to our nursing staff. The California Nurses Association also became involved, sending a representative to meet with hospital administration about the case. This situation highlights a growing problem in healthcare, said CNA Representative Maria Santos. When administrative policies prevent nurses from providing appropriate patient care, we need to examine whether those policies serve patients or just profit margins. Meanwhile, Thomas Beckett was recovering well from his surgery, and his gratitude toward Elena was unwavering. She didn't hesitate for a second, he told reporters from his hospital bed. She saw someone who needed help, and she helped. That's what nurses are supposed to do. As the story gained national attention, Elena found herself at the center of a debate about healthcare priorities that extended far beyond Crest View General. Nurses from across the country began sharing their own stories of conflicts between patient care and administrative requirements, creating a movement that hospital executives could no longer ignore. The turning point came when Elena learned something about Thomas Beckett that put her situation in an entirely new perspective. Thomas wasn't just any patient. He was a decorated Marine veteran who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and had been awarded the Purple Heart and Bronze Star for his service. I had no idea about his military background when I treated him, Elena told reporters. But it wouldn't have mattered. Every patient deserves the same level of care regardless of their background or ability to pay. However, Thomas's status as a veteran added another dimension to the story that would soon bring unexpected support to Elena's cause. When word of the situation reached Marine Corps networks, the response was swift and overwhelming. Marines take care of their own, Captain Jessica Beckett explained, and they also take care of the people who take care of Marines. The crisis reached its peak when hospital administration, facing mounting public pressure and negative media coverage, made the decision to terminate Elena's employment, effective immediately. The announcement came during a hastily called press conference where Administrator Chen attempted to frame the decision as necessary to maintain hospital standards and patient safety. While we appreciate Ms. Morris's intentions, Chen told the assembled reporters, we cannot allow individual staff members to disregard established protocols regardless of the circumstances. Patient safety depends on consistent adherence to proven procedures. The announcement triggered an immediate backlash from the nursing staff, with over half of the emergency department nurses calling in sick the following day in an unofficial protest. The hospital was forced to bring in temporary staff from other departments and outside agencies to maintain basic operations. Elena, meanwhile, found herself unemployed, but not alone. The California Nurses Association had offered to represent her in any legal proceedings, while a GoFundMe campaign started by her colleagues had raised over $50,000 to support her during the transition. More importantly, job offers were pouring in from hospitals across the country that wanted to hire a nurse with her principles and experience. I don't regret my decision, Elena told supporters gathered outside the hospital. I became a nurse to help people, and I'll continue doing that wherever I can. But this fight isn't just about me. It's about every nurse who has been forced to choose between following rules and following their conscience. The situation reached a dramatic climax 6 hours after Elena's termination, when dozens of Marines in dress blue uniforms began arriving at Crest View General Hospital. Led by Captain Jessica Beckett, the Marines filled the lobby in a show of support for the nurse who had saved one of their own. We're here to honor Nurse Elena Morris, Captain Beckett announced to the stunned hospital staff and media representatives who had gathered. She exemplified the values that we hold dear in the Marine Corps: courage, honor, and putting others before yourself. The sight of uniformed Marines standing at attention in the hospital lobby created a powerful visual that was broadcast on news stations across the country. Their presence was peaceful but unmistakable in its message. The military community stood behind Elena and her decision to prioritize patient care over bureaucratic protocol. Thomas Beckett, now recovered enough to leave his hospital bed, joined the Marines in the lobby. Still weak from his surgery but determined to show his support, he spoke directly to the media about Elena's actions. "This woman saved my life without knowing anything about me except that I needed help." Thomas said, his voice strong, despite his recent ordeal. She risked her career to do what was right, and that's the kind of person we need more of in healthcare. The Marine presence also attracted other veterans and their families, creating a growing crowd of supporters that hospital security was unable to disperse. The demonstration was orderly and respectful, but its impact on hospital operations and public perception was significant. Administrator Chen, watching the scene unfold from his office window, realized that the hospital's position was becoming increasingly untenable as the story continued to gain national attention and support. The turning point came when Congressman Michael Torres, a Marine veteran and member of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, arrived at the hospital to personally thank Elena for her service to the veteran community. His presence elevated the story to a national political issue and put additional pressure on the hospital to reconsider their position. Nurse Morris represents the best of American healthcare, Congressman Torres told the assembled crowd. Her willingness to put patient care above bureaucratic concerns is exactly what we need in our medical system, especially when it comes to caring for our veterans. The congressman's involvement brought additional media attention and political pressure that hospital executives could no longer ignore. The board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation while protesters continued to gather outside the hospital. Elena, overwhelmed by the support but still focused on the larger issues at stake, used the platform to advocate for systemic changes in healthcare policy. "This isn't about me," she told the crowd. "This is about creating a healthcare system that puts patients first and supports the nurses and doctors who are trying to provide the best possible care." Faced with overwhelming public pressure, negative media coverage, and the very real possibility of a boycott by the veteran community, Crest View General's Board of Directors called an emergency meeting to address the Elena Morris situation. The hospital's reputation was suffering significant damage, and several major donors had threatened to withdraw their support if the administration didn't reverse course. Board Chairman Dr. Patricia Williams herself, a veteran and former Navy surgeon, led the discussion about how to resolve the crisis while maintaining the hospital's credibility. "We need to acknowledge that our protocols may have created an untenable situation for our nursing staff," she told the assembled board members. Meanwhile, Elena prepared for what she expected to be a long legal battle, working with attorneys from the California Nurses Association to document the pattern of protocol violations that had put patients at risk. Her case had become a symbol of broader issues in healthcare, and she felt the weight of representing thousands of nurses who faced similar conflicts between administrative requirements and patient care. The preparation phase also involved coordination between the Marine Corps veteran organizations and nursing advocacy groups to ensure that any resolution would address the systemic issues that had led to Elena's termination. Despite the overwhelming support she had received, Elena struggled with doubts about whether her actions had been worth the disruption they had caused. The hospital was struggling to maintain operations with reduced nursing staff, and she worried that patients were suffering because of the controversy surrounding her case. "Maybe I should have just followed the protocol," Elena confided to her friend Sarah Kim. "Look at all the chaos this has caused." Sarah firmly rejected Elena's self-doubt. "You saved a man's life, and you've started a conversation that needed to happen. Don't let them make you feel guilty for doing the right thing." The support from the veteran community and her nursing colleagues helped Elena maintain her resolve, but she remained focused on ensuring that any resolution would benefit patients and healthcare workers rather than just resolving her personal situation. The climactic moment came when Hospital Administrator Chen, accompanied by Board Chairman Dr. Williams, approached Elena in the hospital lobby where she was meeting with supporters. The tension was palpable as hundreds of people, including Marines, veterans, nurses, and media representatives, watched the confrontation unfold. "Ms. Morris," Chen began, his voice barely audible over the crowd noise, "the board of directors would like to speak with you privately about your situation." Elena, surrounded by her supporters, felt the weight of the moment. Her response would not only determine her own future, but would send a message about the values that should guide healthcare decisions. The Marines stood at attention behind her while cameras captured every word and gesture. "Mr. Chen," Elena replied, her voice steady and clear, "anything you have to say to me can be said in front of these people who have supported me. They deserve to hear what the hospital's position is." Chen's attempt to control the narrative by moving the conversation to a private setting had failed, leaving him exposed to public scrutiny as he tried to explain the hospital's position. His prepared remarks about protocol and liability seemed hollow in the face of the crowd's obvious support for Elena. "The hospital has policies that must be followed," Chen said, his voice growing defensive. "We cannot allow individual employees to make unilateral decisions about patient care." The response from the crowd was immediate and negative, with several Marines calling out challenges to Chen's statement. Thomas Beckett, still weak but determined, stepped forward to address the administrator directly. "Sir, your policy would have killed me," Thomas said simply. "This nurse saved my life by ignoring your policy. How do you justify that?" Chen's inability to provide a satisfactory answer to Thomas's question highlighted the fundamental flaw in the hospital's position. The crucial moment came when Dr. Williams stepped forward to address the crowd, her military bearing and medical credentials giving her words additional weight. As a veteran herself, she understood the significance of the Marine presence and the broader implications of the hospital's actions. "I want to personally apologize to Nurse Morris and to Mr. Beckett for the way this situation has been handled," Dr. Williams announced, her voice carrying across the lobby. "After reviewing the circumstances, it's clear that Nurse Morris made the correct medical decision and should be commended, not punished." The announcement sent a wave of surprise through the crowd as it represented a complete reversal of the hospital's previous position. Elena felt a mixture of relief and vindication, but she also recognized that this moment represented an opportunity to create lasting change. "Dr. Williams," Elena responded, "I appreciate your apology, but I want to make sure that no other nurse faces this same situation. We need to change the policies that created this conflict in the first place." Dr. Williams nodded in agreement. "You're absolutely right. Effective immediately, we're suspending the patient processing protocol and forming a committee to develop new policies that prioritize patient care while maintaining appropriate administrative oversight." The victory was complete when Dr. Williams offered Elena immediate reinstatement with a promotion to nursing supervisor, along with a formal apology from the hospital administration. The crowd erupted in cheers as Elena accepted the position, but she used the moment to emphasize the broader significance of the victory. "This isn't just about me," Elena told the celebrating crowd. This is about every nurse who has been forced to choose between following rules and saving lives. Today, we've shown that patient care must always come first. The Marines rendered a formal salute to Elena, recognizing her as an honorary member of their brotherhood for her service to one of their own. Thomas Beckett, tears in his eyes, embraced the nurse who had saved his life and changed the healthcare system in the process. The resolution represented not just a personal victory for Elena, but a broader triumph for healthcare workers who believed that compassion and clinical judgment should guide medical decisions rather than bureaucratic protocols. Elena's reinstatement and the hospital's policy changes sparked a wave of similar reforms at healthcare facilities across the country. The Elena Morris Protocol became a model for balancing administrative requirements with clinical judgment, emphasizing patient care while maintaining appropriate oversight and documentation. Crest View General Hospital saw an immediate improvement in staff morale and patient satisfaction scores, as nurses felt empowered to use their clinical judgment without fear of disciplinary action. The hospital also experienced an increase in veteran patients who specifically requested treatment at the facility that had honored one of their own. Elena's story became a case study in nursing schools and healthcare administration programs, illustrating the importance of supporting frontline healthcare workers and maintaining the human element in medical care. The California Nurses Association used her case to advocate for stronger protections for nurses who prioritize patient care over administrative convenience. Thomas Beckett made a full recovery and became a vocal advocate for healthcare reform, using his platform as a veteran to speak about the importance of supporting healthcare workers who serve those who serve their country. 5 years after the incident, Elena had become a nationally recognized advocate for nursing rights and patient care reform. She completed her master's degree in nursing administration and was appointed to the state board that oversees nursing practice standards, using her position to ensure that patient care remained the top priority in healthcare policy decisions. The Elena Morris Foundation, established with donations from grateful patients and supporters, provided scholarships for nursing students and funded research into best practices for emergency care protocols. The foundation's work helped bridge the gap between administrative efficiency and clinical excellence. Crest View General Hospital became a model for other facilities seeking to balance operational requirements with patient-centered care. The hospital's reputation for supporting its nursing staff attracted top talent and improved patient outcomes across all departments. The incident also led to federal legislation requiring hospitals that receive government funding to establish patient advocacy programs and protect healthcare workers who prioritize patient safety over administrative protocols. On the 5th anniversary of the incident, Elena stood in the same trauma bay where she had first treated Thomas Beckett, now serving as the hospital's chief nursing officer. The room had been renamed the Thomas Beckett Emergency Treatment Center in honor of the veteran whose case had changed everything. As she watched a new generation of nurses confidently providing patient care without fear of administrative retaliation, Elena reflected on how a single moment of choosing compassion over compliance had transformed not just her own career, but the entire healthcare system. Sometimes, Elena thought, watching her staff save another life, the most important rule to break is the one that prevents you from helping others. True health care happens when we remember that behind every policy and protocol is a human being who deserves compassion, dignity, and the very best care we can provide.